Good morning, and welcome back to the Daily Trucking Market Update podcast. I'm your host, Driven, and on this show, I dive into the markets to keep you truck drivers, you owner operators, up to date so you can best position your truck to make the most money. Now, I'll be using the DAT load board, and I appreciate them sponsoring this video. And in return, they've provided you with the link down in the description box for 10% off for your first 12 months, so check it out. Now, stick around. I got a dad joke to tell, and then we'll dive right in.
Rolling down the highway, sun just breaking through. Radio's playing loud, the show's for me and you. Learn how to book your loads and make that money flow. Keep the shiny side up wherever we go.
Now, all that I ask for the little chuckle, or maybe not, is to hit that like button and maybe consider subscribing if you get some value from this, or maybe just a laugh. Apologies, we're running a little bit behind today. Not quite feeling so hot, so let's go ahead and get right into it with the dad joke. What did one DNA say to the other DNA? Do these genes make me look fat? I was reading a couple older ones earlier, and they were much more funny. But hey, let's have a look at the weather. So we got a storm brewing up there in that northwest. It's starting to show some snow as of right now up there in the northern part of Washington. But as it moves on, even today, it's going to intensify, and you're going to see a lot more snow spread across basically the whole region. And then looking into tomorrow, you can see that there's a ton of blue, and it winds up moving across and dumping ice in Wyoming. I say ice because we all know it doesn't really snow there; it just ices, right? It's like a skating rink on 80 up there. So y'all be careful. If you're headed to the northwest, just keep an eye on that weather. Yeah, the load is not worth your life. A few bucks, not worth your life. You still got this system over here in the northeast going on. It's dumping some snow as well, but seems to clear out even today. So just be careful out there as well. And looks like some rain down there in Florida, a little bit in Texas, not much. A little bit in New Mexico, not much. Yeah. So that's what the weather looks like today. I urge you to keep an eye on it. If you're curious, that's weatherstreet.com. I use that for the visuals just because I like it. So this is like where I like to start with the market update. This is the national load counts. This gives us a barometer as far as what's going on the state level. In a few minutes, we're actually going to look at the actual market level because a state like, for instance, California, just because it shows that it's well above that 50-50 load to truck ratio, 50-50 marks, kind of what I call it, it does not mean that the entirety of the state is in good shape or is a good market. So you need more than this, but this gives us a good idea of what's going on. And then I, kind of usually compare back to, the earlier in the week or even the past few weeks. So let's go ahead and get into it. Alabama, 808 loads out or in to 321 loads out. So that is definitely a shift in the wrong direction for the driver. Arkansas, 387 loads in to 647 loads out. So that's a shift in the right direction for the drivers. Definitely an increase in production there. You've got some negotiating power. I say some, because Arkansas is surrounded by states that are not great for freight. So you do get those people that'll deadhead and bounce over to pick up freight. So even though it's in good shape, may not have a ton of negotiating power. Arizona, 541 loads in to 513 loads out. That's a surprise. That's a healthy increase for Arizona. Still not great shape. It's not like you're going to make a ton of money, but you may not get stuck if you're headed that way. California, 1,789 loads in to 2,711 loads out. So California is seeing an increase in production for sure. And you got some negotiating power there in California, so use it. They will negotiate with you, I promise. Colorado, 690 loads in to 274 loads out. This is a good time to mention, actually, that I did drop a video to help you negotiate. Outside of my 10-year driving career, I was completely in sales, and all of that was spent negotiating. I'm not going to say like I'm the greatest negotiator in the world, but I would say that I'm, relatively decently skilled. And so I pass a lot of those tips over to you in that video right up there. So check that out. Moving on. Connecticut, 315 loads in to 154 loads out. Skipped right over Colorado, didn't I? 690 loads in to 274 loads out. So a lot of trucks going into Colorado, but just kind of average freight coming out. So take what you can get. Connecticut, 315 loads in to 154 loads out. DC has 8 loads. Delaware, 116 loads in to 83 loads out. Florida, 4,161 loads in to 569 loads out. That's the worst ratio that I've seen since I've been doing this for the past couple of months. That's gross. That's gross. Georgia, 2,617 loads in to 1,141 loads out. So really, not great shape for Georgia. That's a lot of trucks headed that way, a little bit more than usual, and not the greatest of increase in production. It is a small bump, but I mean, it can be all over the place. It can be higher than that as well. Iowa, 400 loads in to 717 loads out. So a nice increase in production in Iowa. You've definitely got negotiating power up there. Use it. Idaho, 118 loads in to 159 loads out. So be interesting to see how the Northwest progresses, because that's a bit of a dip. Illinois, 1,363 loads in, 2,902 loads out. That is another healthy jump for production there in Illinois. So you definitely have negotiating power there, especially considering that the surrounding states are also in pretty good shape. So certainly negotiate, ask for more, give reasons why they should pay you more, and they will pay you more. Indiana, 1,068 loads in to 1,680 loads out. So that's pretty much just remained the same this week, but good shape. Kansas, 430 loads in to 545 loads out. So Kansas getting a nice bump there, likely in the Kansas City market. But that's one of those states that you need to know where the freight's at, and we'll look at that here in a second. Kentucky, 677 loads in to 851 loads out. Really good shape for Kentucky. Kentucky does kind of make a bit of a late push in the week. So above that 50-50 mark, not the best of negotiating power because of the states that surround it, but decent shape. The loads posted should be decent. Louisiana, 396 loads in to 394 loads out. It's pretty good for Louisiana. Massachusetts, 477 loads in to 319 loads out. Maryland, 412 loads in, 484 loads out. Bit of a bump in production for Maryland. Maine, 133 loads in, 141 loads out. Michigan, 685 loads in, 1,168 loads out. So we did see that push later in the week from Michigan. Minnesota, 385 loads in to 819 loads out. Those Great Lakes states still coming on strong. If you've been watching the channel for a while, you've been watching these updates, you're very likely positioning your truck in the Great Lakes states later in the week, and you're making more money than the average. Oh, Missouri, 817 loads in, 1,087 loads out. So decent for Missouri. Not the greatest of surrounding states, so not a ton of negotiating power, but in decent shape nonetheless. Mississippi, 374 loads in to 406 loads out. Montana, 60 loads in, 72 loads out. North Carolina, 2,123 loads in to 835 loads out. That's an increase in the wrong direction, unfortunately. North Dakota, 64 loads in, 166 loads out. That's average for North Dakota, but you do have negotiating power up there. So be firm. Nebraska, 255 loads in, 254 loads out. It's actually decent for Nebraska. New Hampshire, 158 loads in to 35 loads out. Jersey, 762 loads in to 1,458 loads out. So that looks really good. Before I say anything about Jersey, though, we're going to have a look at New York. And probably should also look at PA as well. New Mexico, 180 loads in, 110 loads out. That's normal. Nevada, 173 loads in, 439 loads out. So really good shape for Nevada. That's a decrease in loads in and an increase in loads out. So certainly negotiating power there in Nevada, make them pay. New York, 826 loads in to 1,297 loads out. So a small bump in production for New York, but just typical loads in. So good shape. That little tri area right there is looking solid. Ohio, 1,316 loads in, 2,229 loads out. Great shape for Ohio, even for later in the week. Good amount of negotiating power there. Let's look at PA here in a second, though. Oklahoma, 500 loads in to 335 loads out. It's actually an increase in production for Oklahoma. Well, that's not really saying much, is it? Oregon, 154 loads in, 504 loads out. So Oregon might be the savior up there in the Northwest. Really good shape, bump in production, decrease in loads in. So really good for Oregon up there. So you got that negotiating power. Use it. PA, 1,885 loads in, 2,221 loads out. So we are seeing we saw an increase in loads in, but we saw a nice increase in production as well. So that little tri-state area, that PA, Jersey, New York, you've got negotiating power there. Use it. Also because of the freight, the amount of freight there, we need to look at where it's at. It's very likely over on the eastern side. But if the western half is in decent shape, if it's above blue, basically, it's average, then that's going to give you more negotiating power in Ohio. So a lot relies on Pennsylvania, kind of like our election, right? Rhode Island, 98 loads in to 32 loads out. South Carolina, 956 loads in to 705 loads out. That's average. South Dakota, interesting. We got a bump here, 118 loads in, but 125 loads out. So interesting. A bump in both in South Dakota. Tennessee, 1,141 loads in, 848 loads out. So more trucks headed in, same freight headed out. So that's a decrease for the driver. Texas, 4,143 loads in. It's so fascinating to see later on in the week, like Florida and Texas, those numbers go way up because everybody's going home, right? But it's interesting to see. 4,143 loads in, 2,725 loads out. Not great shape for Texas, as per usual. Utah, 268 loads in, 417 loads out. So, you got a little bit of negotiating power actually there in Utah. Virginia, 1,009 loads in, 806 loads out. So an increase in trucks headed in and a small increase in production, but we didn't catch up there. So no real negotiating power there in Virginia. Vermont, 41 loads in, 57 loads out. Washington, 317 loads in, 602 loads out. So it's an increase for the driver there in Washington. So you do have negotiating power. But Oregon is definitely going to be, your best bet for getting paid up there in the Northwest. Wisconsin, 605 loads in, 1,840 loads out. That's huge. That's triple. That's more than triple. A little more, but that's huge. Those are Great Lakes states. I mean, that would be the only place that I would run. That would be the only place that I would just try to get to Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That's it. And if I got there on a Wednesday, I'd probably run, something small, something really short, a couple 100-mile load, whatever, just something short to reposition myself maybe a little bit better. But this is where I would run out. It's been that way ever since I've been watching this. And I hope if there's anybody out there that's actually doing this, that's running out of the Great Lakes states, leave a comment down below. A lot of people may not make it this far into the video, but regardless, I'd love to see, who's actually taking advantage of this and who is actually earning more from the markets than, Joe Blow, who's not doing this. So I'm curious. Leave a comment, please. We just went over Wisconsin. I got excited. Sorry. West Virginia, 138 loads in, 196 loads out. In Wyoming, 59 loads in, 118 loads out. All right. I'm not going to go into this really at all. If you want to look at this, you can catch one of the videos earlier in the week. I am putting this up on the screen, so you're more than welcome to pause this and have a look. But the only thing that's changed really is the fuel price. Fuel price has gone up 1.4%. It's at $3.63 as opposed to what was it, $3.58 even yesterday. So, all right, looking at the heat map. So let's see where this freight is actually located. So, like I said, up there in the Northwest, it's located there in the Portland market. Despite an increase in production up there in Washington, the majority of the increase is down there by Portland. So, Seattle's still doing okay. It's not terrible shape, but if you are up there, just make sure, if you're in Seattle, even if you're in northern Seattle, make sure that your search covers the Portland area and even, a little beyond that, maybe 100 miles beyond that, because you've definitely got negotiating power up there, but it might be down in the Portland area, not necessarily the Seattle area. So, looking down at California, so there was that nice increase in production, but it looks like all of it's down south. If you're up north, sorry, the San Francisco market is still, it's still okay, but the Sacramento market is terrible, so it's going to eat up the San Francisco market. Phoenix area, I mean, I really don't know what to say about Arizona, New Mexico. I don't know. I just avoided them personally, but supposedly the Phoenix area is where the freight's at. So, and then in Nevada, we saw that nice increase, but it looks to be in the northern half. So maybe if you're in California, maybe bounce over. Before you bounce over, have a look. Look before you bounce. Always, even if you're bouncing to a good market, look before you bounce. Over here in Texas, the Houston and the Dallas markets are both in good shape, and even the western, like the markets that's just west of Dallas, is in good shape. So, the Louisiana market that's in the southern half of the state, that's normal. Arkansas, we saw that bump, that increase, but it looks to be all over there near the Memphis area. So, yeah, that's good. It looks like that little southeast area, kind of the markets that are surrounding Atlanta, are doing a little bit better than what they were. But you heard the numbers. I mean, they're not great. Hopefully it picks up. The Kansas City market, it did heat up. So all that freight over there in Kansas is in the Kansas City market. St. Louis is just average from what it was. Let's see here. Illinois. So we're seeing a color change for the better in the majority of Illinois. But the majority of the freight's going to be up there in that Chicago market. If you're over there in that Chicago market, if you're north of the Chicago market, even up to Wisconsin, you're in a really, really good area, a very, very good area. So negotiate, get all the money, make them pay. You can do it. I mean, certainly there's literally zero doubt in my mind. None. I know drivers that are doing it. So the guys that are in the comments saying that the brokers won't negotiate, the brokers won't do this, the brokers won't do that. I put a bold video out there. I'm sorry, but the problem is you. You need to work on your negotiating skills. You need to work on your people skills, because they are out there negotiating. They are giving out more money. They are. Simple. Up there in Minnesota, it's in the Minneapolis market. Michigan's looking really good. Even the Detroit market is okay, but the majority of the freight up there in Michigan's on the western half. Indiana, it's in the southern half. Ohio is just all red. That's great. Ohio looking really good. But one thing that I wanted to look at was the western half of Pennsylvania, and it's above average for this day. So you've got negotiating power there in Ohio. Use it. Like I said, the western half is looking good. I don't know why I feel the need to include New York in that little tri-state area. I don't know why. I guess because it's just so close to Jersey. I don't know. I think I'm gonna stop talking about New York. Anyway, the Philadelphia market looking really good, along with that Jersey market. Delaware's, I don't know, it had some freight. It's good because it's better than normal in Delaware, and so is it in Maryland. It's better than normal. So, that leaves the negotiating power for you there in Pennsylvania and Jersey. And that's going to wrap it up, guys. I appreciate y'all tuning in, and gals. Thank you so much. I do appreciate y'all. The ones that make it this far into the video, I sincerely appreciate you very much. I hope you're getting some value out of this. I hope you're learning. But most importantly, I hope you're making more money. Like that's why I do this, and yeah, eventually you won't need me, so that'll be a sad day. But anyway, you guys have a great day. Keep the shiny side up, but as always, stay driven. I'll see you tomorrow.